100 million kalpas, having yet to hear, accept, and maintain. May I taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Good morning. Today, I want to continue turning the wheel of Zen practice, teaching, and expression, and opening to racial justice as a particular facet of the Bodhisattva vow, and a facet of how we actualize awakening, love, and liberation together. Many of our recent talks at Stone Creek have been turning this wheel. So Jisho spoke on waking up to delusion, waking up to racism 3 weeks ago. Joan's talk in June was called Dharma is Justice. Lien's talk in June was Bodhisattvas as Agents of Change. A few weeks ago, Galen's talk touched on this. The talks that Dojin and I have offered have touched on this. And we keep turning this wheel. And in one sense, we're not saying anything new. And in another sense, practice is we never stop turning the same wheel. Turning the wheel of practice, turning the wheel of awakening, and takes care of practice, keeps the practice, keeps awakening alive. I want to start by bringing up a kind of art called landscape art, which in China and Japan and some other East Asian cultures, landscape art as a form of painting that's sometimes associated with Zen, and also as parallels in nature or landscape poetry. And also you can see this in Zen rock gardens. And in these various forms of landscape art, mountains and valleys, and skies and clouds, and waters and trees are prominent. And human figures and human dwellings are absent, tiny, or just suggested. And the poetry emphasizes a kind of natural beauty, detached from human impacts. And a kind of naturalness is likewise, valued in Zen rock gardens. And so let's see, I have some examples. So I'm gonna try and do this now. Okay, is that sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so here's some landscape art, a very famous Zen landscape art. Here's another one. Vast panorama. There's another one. That one's in the temple. Okay, now stop share. Okay, that kind of worked. So I want to kind of bring up some of this landscape art, actually in a kind of critical way, but just to say, on one hand, there can be a deep spiritual dimension to these artistic expressions, and they can offer a glimpse of something vast freedom. They may express some longing for freedom from civilization and the productions and endless churning of human karma, and some urge to commune with nature. And they can affirm a kind of inherent vastness or depth to our true nature of awakening. And they can suggest a wide view. a broadening of perspective, and also a sense of tranquility that comes with a big view. And on the other hand, when I look at these now and in my life, they can feel escapist. You know, human problems seem to have been left behind. Vast panoramas can make our daily struggles seem trivial. And the struggles and problems of society seem to have been transcended. And so this is something I can feel in landscape art. It's something you can also feel if in a meditation practice I get too involved in tranquility, too detached from the earth, too detached from emotions, from human predicaments, from a messy, mortal, embodied life. And I feel like there is a yearning for freedom from the center of our life. But I think in terms of practice and our vow, this freedom is it's not a liberation apart from this life. I feel my vow in actualizing a freedom in this life, this person, this moment, these problems, sheltering in place, lockdown, COVID, racial strife, engaging my location in racial conditioning as this person, as a white person, and in a context of injustice and wanting to participate in dismantling rather than maintaining injustice. And so how do we paint this? How do we paint the dynamic truth of a middle way? How do we paint or actualize the liberating truth of relationality? How does this truth in this way meet and transform the challenges and suffering of self and others and this society? And so I feel called by practice to embrace the challenges of this life basically as if I chose them, as if they were an awakened choice. So I can engage this kind of embrace. Meeting COVID, meeting the inequities of racial injustice, meeting the inequities of other systems of and structures of domination. Meeting, my various deep and sometimes complicated relationships with my loved ones. Meeting, being a mortal being, subject to aging, illness, and death. Meeting this life as my deepest vow or my deepest wish. And when I might feel trapped, I can embrace. And this is another way I can say yes. I can say yes to this life yes to this life in its fullness, uh, in its mortality, with its wounds, with its hurt places. And this yes, or this embrace, is not a static thing. It's opening to dynamic engagement and transformation. Um, and it's an embrace of opening more and more fully into our complete relationality. That there's nothing separate here to defend or take care of. There's a relational being to take care of. And because it's relational, it's always vulnerable and always full of liberating possibility. And it's meeting suffering. And this meeting can be liberating and connecting. James Baldwin wrote, "You realize that your suffering does not isolate you. Your suffering is your bridge." So, resisting my life isolates me. The challenge of being this person is my bridge to real connection, or to the reality of connection. Actualizing the reality of connection is awakening, and it's love, and it's liberating. So, we could also say, how is our life right now a painting of awakening? Can I say yes to this particular embodied, unpredictable, out of control life? And I see a middle way here between my usual or my conditioned uh, forms of involvement and identification with my thinking, with this self, um, with my feelings, with my defenses. And then on the other hand, detachment, um, escaping, deflecting, denying, avoiding, you know, and that path being the kind of, the landscape art potential lean embodied there. And so the middle way we could say is non-attachment, but I think we could also say it's non-attachment and non-detachment. Um, and this non-attachment is subtle and dynamic. And it's subtle because it's addressing grasping. My conditioning is to attend to things, to objects, to what's happening. And my conditioning is not to attend to how I am holding and grasping and apprehending those things, those objects, that what's happening. So this non-attachment, that's what it's looking at, the grasping. And it's dynamic because releasing grasping is a freedom, but it's not a detached freedom from. It's a living freedom in our life, and it's vital and creative. It's a spaciousness where there's possibility. When we grasp, there's no feeling of there's no spaciousness. There's no way to move. There's no other way things could be. When grasping releases, there's a spaciousness which opens, which allows things and us to turn and respond and reform and pivot and play. So this non-grasping middle way of our life is where we can open and engage and unfold the awakened energetics of what is here. And this is a kind of, you could say it's a kind of alchemy. This life, just as it is, becomes the deepest teaching. Or there's a saying, the more the mud, the bigger the Buddha. So I wanted to bring up another kind of landscape painting. In late July, a group of young activists in Sebastopol called the BLM, Black Lives Matter Visibility Team, based here, painted a mural of the words Black Lives Matter in big yellow letters on the main diagonal walkway going through the center of the downtown Sebastopol Plaza. And I read in the Press Democrat that this was the first kind of major Black Lives Matter street art in Sonoma County. So I'm gonna share a screen again. I have an image. Let's see. Can you see that? Okay. So there it is. I guess they got a drone involved. Those are some of the organizers there. All right. Let's see, how do I end that again? Stop share. Okay. And this was inspired by similar murals in major American cities. And it's a kind of landscape painting in a kind of literal sense. And in a less literal sense, it may invite us to broaden our perspective. It's a call for change. Black Lives Matter was founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of the person who killed Trayvon Martin. And its mission is to, quote, eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. And one of the organizers of the Sebastopol mural was Desi Kai, and she's a senior at Amoy High School. She's Black. And also, according to the Press Democrat, she said the mural is of special significance for Sebastopol, where there's few Black people who live here. And she also expressed that a lot of Black people do not feel seen in this community. And so here's this act of painting and a statement. And a statement, in a society where there's inequality, where there's injustice, where Black lives matter less than white lives, and we can see this in the justice system, in education, healthcare, housing, employment, wealth, and so on. I think almost any way you could think of to measure uh, the flourishing of groups and how they're treated in the society. And so here we have this call for change, a loving call for change. And how this inequality lives, we could say sometimes this is talked about in terms of 4 levels: policy or social structures, institutions, interpersonal interactions, and individual hearts and minds, and how all these 4 levels have been impacted by racial conditioning and racist history. And so this mural, I see it as a call for change in all these levels: for policy change, institutional change, change in how we relate, and personal transformation. And I see all these as interweaving. I don't see them that they're not really separate. They all work together. They're inseparable. They happen together as our collective life. On Friday afternoons, every week at 5 p.m. for the last few months, Stone Creek Sangha members have been gathering at the intersection of North Main Street and Bodega Highway in downtown Sebastopol to stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. And those of us who attend hold signs, mostly in silence, and wearing masks, socially distancing. Recently, I was participating in one of these gatherings, and a person approached me and started a conversation by asking me if I thought just saying if just saying Black Lives Matter is enough. That was what they asked. Is that enough? And I said, no, no, no. We're out here for change. We're standing here in solidarity to change hearts and influence policy ultimately. And we then had a conversation, and some things were expressed that I didn't agree with. And I respectfully pushed back and offered some different views. And this person seems somewhat actually receptive to that. It didn't feel necessarily like an argument, but like, oh, okay. Anyway, I don't know. I did appreciate the opportunity to engage in a more of a conversation than a sign can allow. And we're not doing this to feel satisfied or to feel that we've done enough. I do this because I'm looking for ways to do what I can do. The day after the mural was painted, there was a follow-up event. And in this event, the whole community was invited to come and add multicolored handprints around the great big yellow letters. And over 400 people came. And I have some photos of that. So let's see. There's some handprints. Can you see that? Yeah.
That's Desi.
That's Desi. That was the person who helped us. Handprints. Heart handprints. And because this handprint event took place at the same time we normally meet, 5 p.m. on Friday, Stone Creek people, we merged with this event. And a number of us made handprints. And the organizers give us a glove and a paper plate with paint on it, and we mush our hand into the paint and then press down on the sidewalk to leave a handprint. And there were different colors to embody inclusivity. So this is another way of painting awakening. And I really appreciated actually this handprint event. I felt it was like playful and creative, inclusive, engaging, tangible. A tangible and beautiful way to enact communal or collective participation in the mural. And I felt this resonated with something I read on the Black Lives Matter website. We are expansive. We are collective liberators who believe in an inclusive and spacious movement. And I feel this resonating with the core of Zen practice. Zazen can look like an individual practice. It can look like something I do by myself. I might think my practice is something I do. But we have these teachings about how awakening and the embodiment of awakening in Zazen enacts and expresses something that's actually collective. In the Avantamsaka Sutra, upon realizing awakening, Shakyamuni Buddha exclaims, "I, together with the great earth and sentient beings, realize awakening at the same time." And we don't have a handprint event every time we sit. That might be a nice way to bring some color to the Zendo. After our morning sitting on weekdays, we do chant. We chant together. And I appreciate chanting together as a way of enacting how Zazen is also something we do together. And part of our chanting also is a dedication of merit, a dedication of virtue. And dedication can be a way of giving up virtue or merit we may have accumulated for this person through our practice. And so it's an expression of how our practice isn't actually personal. It's an expression of how our practice is always with everyone, or it's an embodiment of how practice in every moment is I, together with the great earth and sentient beings, realize awakening at the same time. And you know, in the midst of us finding our own ways to interface with and respond to the challenges of this life, this moment, this world, you know, it's vital to find ways to join collective action. And this can be part of, there's a bodhisattva guiding method of cooperation or identity action. How does my individual practice support a more collective practice? Or, you know, what is the practice of this person in this moment which supports and empowers and embracing, expansive, inclusive, collective practice? What is the Zazen of awakening together with the great earth and living beings that is also working towards actualizing justice, making the truth of awakening real in our collective life. Or we could also say, is the Bodhisattva vow, is this kind of an ornament of Zazen, a kind of surface level decoration? Or is the vow to realize awakening with all beings, the heart of Zazen, the substance and the body of this practice? At the handprint event, I was really struck by the kindness of the young organizer who guided us through the process. And I also appreciated the handprint as this embodied expression and the physicality of planting my hand firmly on the ground of the sidewalk. So making a clear imprint, arises from this like strong connection. And I look at the handprint event as a way of actualizing connection or embodying a bridge between the personal and the collective, or the individual and the communal. And again, like as Baldwin said, or you realize that your suffering does not isolate you. Your suffering is your bridge. And I've also been really appreciating spending time with a new book by Lama Rod Owens called Love and Rage, The Path of Liberation Through Anger. And he writes, the great activism needed today entails bridging our personal grieving with the grieving of our communities. And making a handprint can be a way of locating ourselves. Each handprint is an expression of communal support to actualize the call to change of Black Lives Matter. And I wanted to bring up locating ourselves as a way to practice the dynamic middle way. And I can locate myself as white, as a middle way. A middle way between, like, on one hand or one side, identifying with race, as if they're identifying with my whiteness, as if race was something real, something, external, something that could be imbued with some hierarchical valuation. And on the other hand, denying race, denying my racial location, denying the profound ways in which my racial conditioning impacts and shapes my identity, my perceptions, my dispositions, my interactions. And so I think that locating myself there can be a middle way between these two extremes. What?
My computer is popped off.
Uh-oh.
It's reconnecting now.
I think I'm still connected.
Yeah, okay, they can still see you. Yeah.
And I've also been looking at this in terms of pronouns, how I locate myself using pronouns. And when I give Dharma talks, and when I consider how I want to express myself in a Dharma talk, I tend to like using we. And because we feels like we're in this together, it's inclusive. We're in this shared effort. This practice of collective awakening. And, saying you can feel kind of separating, or kind of seems like maybe like reifies a sense of like there's me over here separate from you over there. And and I'm in this like centered seat, does that mean I'm up here and you, if I say you, are you down there? That's kind of like, well, I'm not interested in that. So in this talk, or well, no, but then the we can be excluding. A we can sometimes include a presumption of something that feels. Can you mute that? Okay. That feels universal, feels normal, which is actually not universal and not normal. So being white in a lot of discourse in society is centered. It's regarded as the normal, the norm, and not worth pointing out. And what is not white in appearance or in behavior or in ways of talking and so on is regarded as different, as not normal, and often on some level as less than. So that's a kind of problem of some uses of we. Is like, can I attend to the assumptions in my we, in my use of that pronoun? So in this talk, I've been trying to use more I language as a way of like locating myself in what I'm saying, and also with the aspiration that locating myself like this is a way to practice a middle way that actually has the potential to be more inclusive, and I hope you know not raising up the self. Locating myself can be how I realize my suffering does not isolate me, that my suffering is a bridge. Within a week, I think, of the mural painting, the word all was spray painted over the first few letters of black on the mural. So I have an image of this. There it is. They weren't as, is it here?
Yeah.
They weren't that committed, luckily. And here's a statement from the Black Lives Matter visibility team on their Instagram account. While we know that all lives matter, we also know that this phrase was created as a direct negative response to the Black Lives Matter movement. By saying all lives matter, you are overlooking the fact that Black people in this country have been treated unfairly, disrespected, and have not been seen for far too long in America. You are silencing the voices of the people who are standing up and saying enough is enough. I want to be treated equally and at least matter in this country. Stop silencing Black people. Stop silencing people of color. Start listening and learning, because all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. And so also in response to this, the team has requested city council if they can set up a kind of plaque to say more about the meaning of the mural and how it came about. Whenever I express myself, it's part of a conversation. It doesn't come out of a void. And there's no such thing as the final word. And I can notice an urge arise to protect this mural. And I think I saw some other expressions of this, like, can we put up surveillance cameras? And this could be one way to continue the conversation. But these can also feel like is there also an urge to want to end the conversation? And does that make any sense when a call to change is actually, it's a call to have transformative conversations? So how do we have transformative conversations? What is a transformative conversation? Is it convincing someone of something? Or is it like a heart thing? How do hearts open and change? Can I enter a transformative conversation if I'm not in touch with my own vulnerability? How and when is my suffering a bridge? Can there be a transformative conversation without a bridge, without a connection? This is this conversation, I think, in this society right now is a struggle. And there actually is like there's a Zen painting of struggle. It's the how do I do this now? Share again. Catching the ox and taming the ox. That's not very struggling picture right there. The ox is cooperating, but actually as they're walking along, the ox is really, it's still in a phase of pulling away quite a bit. They just didn't paint that. So these are the 4th and 5th ox herding pictures. The later ox herding pictures kind of look like landscape art. And we might think like, let's just get past these middle ox herding pictures and get to those later ones. And so in Soto Zen, we sometimes emphasize not grasping after the later stages. Actually, all the 10 ox herding pictures are present right here. Or we could also say we can affirm each ox herding picture as a complete expression of the practice of awakening. So struggle, there is struggle. Real growth often involves struggle. And it can be messy and chaotic. I fall down, I make mistakes, I get knocked over, I get disoriented, I try too hard, I don't try hard enough. I want to skip over the struggle. I may yearn for some vast panoramic freedom in the clouds. But this life is our practice. And this right here is the mud. And saying yes to this life, saying yes to struggle, and yes to giving myself to a transformative conversation, and a conversation that right now has a long way to go in the society. Struggling with the ox of injustice. And struggle is part of a dynamic middle way actualizing awakening. And so I see this mural with these handprints all around it. has become part of a conversation of justice. And now there's a struggle with impulses to deny and cover it over. And these impulses want to end the conversation with the status quo. But they cannot escape entering into the conversation. And so the mural has been restored. Maybe it won't be the first time it has to be restored. And this is the wheel keeps turning like this. And so showing up fully in the conversation is vital to how I take care of awakening and justice. You know, how in this moment, in this breath, do I paint the middle way? How do I, together with the great earth and all beings, actualize dynamic awakening at the same time? So, thank you very much. So now we could have questions, comments, discoveries, expressions.
Charlie, I want to thank you for that talk. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
The visuals from this Zen landscape painting to the visuals of and making it real on the street with the handprint it's exactly what art's about. and it's what Zen is about.
yeah.
That was a really, really great talk. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Korin?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I've got, thank you. The part of your talk that really got me was about grasping. And this morning, my zat was consumed with grasping. I was irate at Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. Mark is Jewish, I'm Jewish, and yet he's allowing the conspiracy called QAnon to proliferate on Facebook. And so I just could not let go of it. And it's very emotional, it's visceral, and it seems like everything that's happened with our current administration, every day there's something new, and it's something emotional I get involved with. And it's deep down, okay. And then I try to come up, and it's in my head, and I say, okay, calm down. You're a Buddhist, but that's all up here. And I haven't found a way to connect, to an antidote that's based from my heart. And I think you're mentioning the Bodhisattva way and getting involved in positive aspects may be a way, but it's still, for me, it's been I just haven't been able to make that transition, that bridge.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like our grasping is intense, and it is a process of feeling our way into the grasping and feeling our way into all the pain around and underneath the grasping, and that's something we were not conditioned to do. We don't have a lot of support to do this, and so it's something. So we have the support of meditation, and for our forms, not everyone is supported by stillness and being upright. But personally, I find, our form of practice, our form of sitting, to be this deep support to, and breathing. So breathing in to our pain, breathing into our grasping, and there's resistance, and so there's grasping on top of grasping, and so we start with what we can feel, and try to, and I formulated as a conscious intention, I want to feel this fully. I think if there's a little bit of like, I want to get away from this grasping, what's the what's the tool that can get me away from this or get rid of this? That's just that's more grasping. That will maintain the energetics of the grasping life. So we need to find a way to, again, I would say just the intention to fully feel the grasping and fully feel what the grasping is, the pain around the grasping and the pain in the middle of the grasping. I think, we could have a grasping, there's hurt often, that are either under or in the grasping. There's wounds. And so the grasping is an unskillful way of trying to take care of our wound, of where we've been hurt in this life. And so we need to feel the grasping and feel our way to these places we've been hurt, and find a healing awareness, which again is basically just this intention to fully feel, to respectfully, gently, kindly feel. And I think that's how we can bring some healing to what's been hurt. And we need patience, because the patterns are so developed.
Thank you.
Can I say I agree with Larry? And I just wanted to say that I felt like Korin's answer meant you were supposed to pull away from this problem and go into the interior where to handle that. Whereas I can understand where Larry is, where he would have the reaction would be to have the impulse to go outward and do something about it. And I think that's the real question. What can we within our practice do that will align with this impulse to do something?
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
There was this, Annette talked about this recent group of Buddhists that are sending out letters to us. And I joined that with another Sangha member, where we're going to get together and send out these letters that go to a state, I think it's Wisconsin, to help bring out the vote. And so it's small, but it's something where at least we're doing something in a positive way. So that's just one minor method.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Korin,
Yes.
I wonder if I could, this is Keiko.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
So I wonder if I could address this briefly. So I've seen a lot of these signs in my neighborhood where I live, Black Lives Matter, etc. Houses covered in them. And what worries me a little bit is the kind of performative aspect of it, where it just seems very easy to put up a sign, cover your house with signs, hold a sign, paint it on sidewalk, whatever. It doesn't really require very much of a person in terms of like building their own self-awareness or questioning, their beliefs. And I would say that, like, given the massive amount of suffering that's happening in the Black and Brown communities right now with COVID, that, in the absence of giving any sort of material support, I wonder if there isn't a danger, for example, the emphasis given in Sebastopol to protecting the mural, when the girl had said that Black people don't feel comfortable in Sebastopol, and yet all the focus is on protecting the mural. So I wonder if you could address that, the sort of virtue signaling aspect of a lot of this, I think works against consciousness raising about like white privilege and your own sort of role in that.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely, I appreciate you bringing it up, and I think it's a real danger, or it's a real potential problem that becomes all it is. And that's part of the reason I brought up that conversation about, is this enough? And it's like, yeah, it's not enough. And so, so I kind of feel like, well, we just need to keep coming from a sense of real connection and love, and opening to the suffering that we can open to and see. And you know, and I feel like we have this practice to kind of look at ourselves, but that's not, you know, that's not where it ends. We need to live this out, and individually and collectively. And so yeah, I hope it's not just, you know, I don't know how we create change in this society, but I do feel like there is a, if we can, I do feel like that there's we do need policy change, and we do need hearts to change. I feel like we need both, and I feel like our practice, I feel deeply supported by my practice to work on changing hearts, changing my heart. Our practice doesn't specialize in policy change, but I would like to. But I don't feel like it's separate. I don't feel like it's apart from that. And
oh, it begins with understanding yourself and your views. I mean, it begins within, and how you treat people, and how you see people, and how you treat people. And so I guess my worry is that not that it's not enough, but that it substitutes for transformation.
Thank you. I feel like, you know, that's the I guess I also look at this in terms of inquiry, like always having the question open. You know, what am I doing? What is this for? And it, you know, and we don't end the conversation, and we don't get to a place of I've done enough and I'm satisfied with this. And keep the inquiry aimed at ourselves, and aimed at injustice.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
This week I was confronted, well, not confronted, but had a good conversation with a Press Democrat reporter regarding the Sebastopol Inn. I developed the Sebastopol Inn in early 2000s, and then sold it, and it's being considered as the way I put it to him, I said to him that you know, the chance for Sebastopol to assist in the processes going on and taking care of less fortunate people, and I fully approve. Now, I don't own it anymore, but I'll see what kind of backlash I get. But this is something that's going on right now in our community that we can support. That we, we have traffic jams every morning coming into Sebastopol, and those are people that work as cashiers and that are risking getting COVID because we are the retail hub of the whole West County of 30,000 people, and we're not. Then those people are not paid very well, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's a way that we can, you know, it's not specifically Black Lives Matter, but it is generally Black Lives Matter, and keep that in consideration in what's going on in our community and the decisions we're going to be making in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing.
I want to jump in on this topic too. I'll get
Korin?
somebody else to talk.
Oh, yes. Should we have Susan go first? I can see you. Oh, now I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, hopefully this is going to be relevant and not, yeah. But in regard to Black Lives Matter and kind of frittering off into some kind of feel-good, do-gooderism, I just want a couple of things. What's the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage is coming up. And that was kind of messy back in the early days. There was a lot of disagreement about, slavery and blah, blah, blah. And it took decades to get to the one thing, which was the beginning, women's right to vote, which was the beginning of a complete change in our society. And I posit that one of the things that, as a result of the murder of George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter demonstration process that's going on, is we have, as a vice presidential candidate, a Black woman. And it's not the end, but it's a beginning. And these things take a long, long time. And I think that okay, here's the other thing. Because I spent a long time being furious politics in our country. It was eating me up. And at some point, thanks to Joko, my teacher, I took a deep dive into the understanding dependent arising and that whole wheel of Dharma and all of that. And internalizing my practice. And in the context of that, dependent arising, because this is, to me, that's where I come from with that. And it's deeper and more profound for me than my anger and my frustration about why in the heck is this still going on? Anyway, that's a whole big thing, but that's just kind of what was my process for that. And we do have Kamala Harris.
Thank you. Let's see. Is someone else?
I'd love to jump in.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your talk, Korin and Charlie. As with many of these talks, it has been a useful timing for me. So I'm just going to reverse my camera here for a second. This is the landscape painting that I'm looking at now, which is actually Connecticut through my window. And I'm in quarantine for 2 weeks before I can help care for my mother. And so the question of kind of detachment, which is and non-detachment, and that was very, very helpful. With the middle way, I'm feeling that between the internal and the external. So between the internal race work that I need to do and the external social justice works that needs to happen, and I'm wondering. I really appreciated a lot of the other comments from other members of the Sangha. You know, they're both necessary, right? And Tara Brock has been organizing for this Win Wisconsin with Jack Cornfield, and Van Jones had this powerful statement for it. And you know, there's texting and stuff like that. And I feel like there are times when we need to act in the world. We really need. You were talking about putting the hands to the pavement, right? And finding what that balance is like, or how to do that in a balanced way. The problem is they all need to happen at once, right? All those 4 things, the different categories. We can't just do our own and wait until we're done to emerge from our cocoon as this beautiful butterfly that can flap around, and right? Like it can't. So then how do you in this as this imperfect being try to not cause more harm by going out in the world? So it's a very active struggle for me. And I'm just grateful that you've raised it. I'm really grateful for the other comments that other members of the Sangha have made. And then on the question of race itself, the middle way, I was wondering, could I read one paragraph from this?
Yes.
How to be an anti-racist. It's the part about race being a mirage. I don't know if you've heard that part, but I felt like it spoke to what you were saying.
Yeah, it's great.
For all of its life-shaping power, race is a mirage, which doesn't lessen its force. We are what we see ourselves as, whether what we see exists or not. We are what people see us as, whether what they see exists or not. What people see in themselves and others has meaning and manifests itself in ideas and actions and policies, even if what they are seeing is an illusion. Race is a mirage, but one that we do well to see, while never forgetting it is a mirage. never forgetting that it's the powerful light of racist power that makes the mirage.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I feel like our this practice, Buddhist practice, is about or there's another mirage, which is being separate. And race, I feel like, interacts with that fundamental delusion in deep ways. And these are deep delusions. These are mirages that shape our lives. And we can't just think our way out of this. We need a deep practice, an embodied, emotional practice that's working with deep grasping to be free. And even while that's going on, we need to, in our imperfect ways, find ways to work towards policy change and institutional change. And I actually feel like we kind of need to work on all these 4 levels at once, basically. I don't think it's great if we can make progress on any of them, but I think that ultimately we all 4 are working together and all imperfect all along the way. Yeah. Doing our best, I hope. Okay. All right. Let's do the closing chant.
That's also in the chat. For great Bodhisattva
beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are infinite. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is boundless. I vow to realize it.